Kazakhstan International Vectors program informs you about international relations, political opinions, economic solutions and social development. It should be noted that the automobile was invented by pedestrians, but motorists somehow have immediately forgotten this. Streets created by pedestrians switched to the power of motorists. Ilfen Petrov, Soviet writers, co-authors. Traffic jams can trigger a heart attack and stroke. Hundreds of billions of dollars large countries are losing on road congestions. Spending on motorists and money saving on cyclists. How do the European powers struggle with traffic jams? Today, there are 1,015 million cars in the world. On the one hand, an individual vehicle is comfortable and convenient. On the other, due to the increasing number of cars, there are traffic congestions. The amount of emissions into the atmosphere is increasing, and people are getting more nervous and sick. On average, one car accounts for almost 7 people worldwide. This figure is at highest rate in Monaco, the United States and Italy, one car for 1.5 persons. In China, this figure significantly differs, one car for 17 passengers. In India, at all the number of people for an automobile is 56. However, the length of roads does not grow in the proportion to the number of cars in the world. As a result, traffic jams appear, which today do not surprise even small provincial towns. In 2008 in São Paulo, Brazil, the longest traffic jam took place. It lasted for 292 kilometers. And in 2010, China's motorists stood in the mesh for 11 days. Many have been driven to despair. Not only congestions, but the busy traffic provokes a negative impact on mental health. During such long-lasting irritants that affect the person through visual receptors, through the auditory receptors, or rather through the eyes and through the ears, they can cause vasospasm. Basically, any nervous stress causes muscle spasm respectively. This in turn compresses blood vessels. Blood begins to flow badly through the vessels. This disrupts the flow and outflow of blood. Because of this, some other physical organs can suffer, particularly the head and the brain. Traffic jams are directly linked with the economic losses. A person loses his or her time, which means the loss of working hours. Drivers spend fuel. Traffic accidents occur regularly, which are costly for both motorists and the state. This pollutes the environment and, as a result, countries spend more on health care. Construction of new roads and junctions at a first glance is the most obvious solution to the problem, but the majority of countries have long abandoned this way. Today, the prime rate in big cities of the world is on the efficient public transport, on quality, and quality not only in terms of services, but also in terms of more effective and energy-efficient solutions. People are switching to electrical automobiles as this reduces damaging emissions. In some cities in the world, diesel vehicles are being banned, because diesel emissions are the most carcinogenic to humans. The second world trend is the development of non-motorized movements. 5 kilometers is the optimum distance which can be overcome by bike. 2 kilometers distance is perfect for walking. This will improve both the situation on the roads and the environment. In addition, the cost of organizing the infrastructure for cyclists and pedestrians is minimal. Many international sources say that if the city is spending money on infrastructure for motorists, this is really a spending. But the infrastructure for other target groups, it is the other way around. The city makes money. That is, it returns through lower health costs, a better mood, great performance. And scientists have already proven it. That is, the city makes profit on healthy and feeling good people, but not on people being tortured in traffic. Good results are shown by the bike sharing system, that is, the public bicycle system that sponsors provide the city with. Typically, for the first half an hour, the bike can be used free of charge. During this time, you can just manage to overcome the 5 kilometers. In Copenhagen, Barcelona, and the most French cities, people do their business affairs on public bikes, not having their own ones. In Astana and Almaty city, where there are similar systems, more and more residents and visitors are starting to use them. In total, in the world, there are 639 bike-sharing systems. Small businesses or the same retail system and the same service sector receives much more on the part of pedestrians rather than from motorists. Perhaps they buy less at a time, but make purchases more often. They are the most frequent shoppers. There are a lot of such examples in the world. That is, the economic arguments often become very good for this or that street to become more attractive to these non-motorized movements. The third world trend to combat congestions on the road, the new approaches to urban planning. Suburbs of megacities grow and do not have limits. Therefore, the new cities of the world are compact and polycentric, in order to make all services and facilities, both public and private, close to the residents' houses, so that they can get them without overcoming great distances. The concept of multifunctional construction is developing. A building that is to meet the needs of many target groups, that is, this would be a housing and business facilities and some enterprises of trade and food, so that it was compact and in one place. In Copenhagen, the road designers have come up with a very unusual way to deal with traffic jams. Once the road congestion begins to form, they do not add but reduce one road strip. For some time, the situation turns into a catastrophe, but then people start to understand how to find ways of detour or even switch to bicycles or public transport. Why do the developed countries impose a tax on traffic jams, and which traffic management systems are already in place in Almaty? The problem of traffic jams on roads has first been felt by the developed countries. In London, for example, specialists for the first time started talking about traffic jams back in the 1950s of the last century. In the late 20th century, to the developed countries in this issue joined the developing states due to the rapid growth of the economy. There even exist statistics on the number of hours spent by one citizen of the city in traffic per year. According to Dutch researchers, the palm here is held by Moscow, 128 hours annually, Istanbul 120 hours, Rio de Janeiro 114 hours, Mexico City 107 hours, and Sao Paulo 102 hours. However, there are other data showing that the most loaded cities are Beijing, Brussels, Sao Paulo, Paris and Mexico cities. Because of traffic jams, cities are losing huge amounts of money. Moscow felt that the amount of economic loss for the year due to the complicated traffic is $250 billion. In Bangkok, this sum is $700 billion. Many cities in the world are saving themselves by means of the so-called tax on traffic jams. For example, in Stockholm, there was a bridge which has always been a traffic jam. Therefore, the authorities have introduced toll on driving through the bridge. Traffic fell by 20%, but these 20% were critical. The jam has disappeared. The system of paid parking in cities is also a way to deal with congestions. In most cities of the world, it is not cheap to enter the central regions on a private car. If in London all cars entering the city centre are subject to certain payments, in Milan it is a limitation related to a greater extent of emissions from cars. That is, for the modern electric car or car of a Euro 5 standard, the payment is much less and some automobiles are generally exempt from such payments, and to some very old cars or trucks the entry to this area in general is prohibited. That is, there are some certain screenings and thus the traffic traffic is reduced. State bans on the purchase of vehicles operate in many Asian countries, such as Singapore, whose economy is also suffering from a lot of congestion. It is possible to purchase the right to own a car only at the auction. There is a division into even and odd-numbered license plates, with which automobiles have the right to travel only on certain days. All measures are aimed to ensure that the number of cars on the roads decreases. Another system which contributes to this is car sharing. Today, almost all major cities of Kazakhstan are facing the problem of traffic jams, but the most affected cities are Astana and Almaty. Today in the southern capital there are 550,000 automobiles. At that, from 200 to 300,000 cars more enter Almaty on a daily basis. According to some estimates, these cars drive 12 million kilometers through the city annually. Over 90% of the fleet on city roads are private cars. More often in one car rides only one person. The automobiles take up space in the city even when standing, and thus they are narrowing carriageways and pedestrian paths and cause new traffic jams. Traffic management and the reduction of the number of cars on the road are two main ways to combat congestion in Kazakhstan. In Almaty today, a comprehensive program is being implemented for the organization of traffic in the years 2016-2023. They include these paid parking places which we are talking about, dedicated lanes for public transport, full organization, changing the mode of traffic lights and so on. As it can be said, there will be intelligent traffic lights. When approaching traffic lights at the intersection, video cameras will be installed which will identify where there are more vehicles. In the corresponding direction, the regime of operation of traffic lights will be changed daily, automatically, hence it will be unnecessary to come out there every day in order to customize everything. Today, the number of regulating city traffic lights is about 60% of the total. As funding becomes available, each year another 10 to 15 facilities will be connected to the control system. The largest cities in the world, when fighting against traffic jams, rely on public transport rather than the road building, and Kazakhstan is no exception. We must look for the effective solutions. It can be much more effective to purchase additional buses or improve infrastructure, or invest in a schedule to the buses run on time. Invest in educating people about how, where and in what period of time a person can get there by public transport, because sometimes there are certain myths in their heads that it will take less time to get from point A to point B by car. Dedicated lanes for public transport are increasing its attractiveness to people, but the most important thing for users is the time spent on the road. In most European cities, schedules of all modes of transport are synchronized. Anyone can calculate the time it will take to get from point A to point B using the mobile application. In Kazakhstan, this is an endeavor. In Almaty, Onay system was established, apart from everything else, in order to take account of data on the number of passengers. The system of passenger traffic and its analysis is the basis of routing systems. That is, in turn regulates the frequency of public transport in the city. If we assume that earlier the periodicity has been broken, then today there is no need for passengers to expect the next bus at stops for more than 10 to 15 minutes. These systems of passenger traffic are being systematized. Thanks to this, the routes of public transport are being adjusted. On some directions, more buses are being put, on some less buses. New routes are being created, and so on. It is also necessary to solve the problem with visiting cars. We have already agreed upon a project to build such a bus, from east to the west and north of the city of Almaty, with the construction of 3 bus stations. These would be reversal bus stations, where non-residents approaching the city will be able to leave their vehicles and continue traveling by public transport in order to move around the city or to get to any part of the city. Large companies are also able to affect the city traffic. Corporate conveying is a way to reduce the number of cars on the road and therefore reduce congestions and save the ecology of the city.